Uh, Welcome to the Psychology of Performance professional discussion series. It's not a webinar or a podcast, but we're not sure what to call it. So this week we've got Jess Bunyard on. Hey Jess, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, excited. Slightly sunburnt because I've been out coaching the entirety of summer, but excited to be on.
That's a good place to be. Like that. So what have you been coaching?
So I'm now Women and Girls Rugby Development Officer at Leicester Tigers, alongside doing other coaching bits. I started there in Jan, so we've been like knee deep in rugby camps all summer, and that's coaching a mix of ages for boys and then under 11s to under 16s girls, which is sort of like my passion project and where I've come in. So they're 1 day camps for girls, so we try and cram a load of stuff in.
Yeah.
But the whole range of the camps, I could be coaching anything from tag, so under 6, under 7s 1 day, and then doing anything from like under 16s girls the next. So it's a pretty bonkers full on couple of weeks, which is fantastic.
That sounds great. And is it all in and around the Leicester area, or are you travelling around?
Yeah, so Leicester Tigers region covers a really big area. And it covers kind of the same as the Premiership Academies map. So our region, to put it really simply, can cover Staffordshire, Norfolk, Leicestershire, Notts, Links, Derby, and a bit of Warwickshire. So it's a really broad region, but that means we get to see a real kind of diverse, lots of people. And we've also just added some women's coaching into that as well. So bringing what I used to do at Huddersfield over into the Leicester Tigers environment, so coaching grassroots women, which is something that I love, because you get such a diverse range of people coming along, lots of different needs, and you've got to cater for that in your coaching.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds brilliant and varied, which keeps it interesting. Are you able to give us a bit of a background of how you've got to that point? So, sort of, have you played, or have you got into coaching? Just give us a bit of an overview of you, if that's all right.
Yeah, I always loved rugby. I mean, we were a big rugby family. So my dad coached and refereed. So one of my earliest memories is like sitting down watching the All Blacks in the front room, and I must have been like 3 or 4 years old, watching the matches, and then going to Leicester Tigers and watching the games, and running around and joining in the warm-ups when my dad coached. But because of the growth of the girls' game at the time, there wasn't really an option for girls to play rugby. So I did football and I loved it. And I went to pretty much every like West Midlands FA football camp that I could in like the rugby Warwickshire area. Like literally there must have been copy and paste the same timetable each week, but across the summer holidays there was never a single camp that I think I missed, because I loved them so much. And you used to get little feedback sheets on like grades on how your skills were, and little comments and feedback, and at the top one of the coaches wrote on one of them, in about 10-15 years you'll be coaching alongside me at some of these camps and some of the stuff. And I've always remembered that, and it is, that feedback form is like somewhere at my parents' house, because we haven't thrown it away. But kind of I fell out of love with sport a little bit, and school PE didn't always like hit what I wanted maybe to get out of sport. It was quite restrictive. But then when I went to university, I did 2 arts degrees, went to uni, and kind of fell back into love with physical activity. I was a huge swimmer, but kind of fell back into team sports.
Yeah.
So went along, played rugby, had some trials at different clubs, but fell in love with university rugby. So I played for my uni, then found grassroots kind of rugby clubs, found one that I really loved, and it just grew from there. And I found that when the coach couldn't attend a couple of sessions and I was captain of a team, I'd run the sessions, and they were probably, looking back now, not the best coach sessions you could ever have, but that was my first kind of foray into coaching. And when I moved back up to Huddersfield after my degrees, I got like spotted at a gym, because I was just wearing some rugby shorts and I was just lifting some weights and stuff. And this guy was like, "Oh, do you want to come along and play for this local team?" And I was like, actually, if there's an option to coach, I'd probably really, really love to try that. And that's how it all got started. So, but I think by the end of that season, I was assistant coach of a local university team that joined in with that local club. And then the season after that, I was head coach of that university team.
Oh, wow.
And I just like, I got thrown into it, properly thrown into it. But the support I had at the time from like the RFU on the ground and the club people, and pushing me onto what was then the RFU level 2, that's now called the IRCA. I had some great support, and it was a space where it was a lot of quick learning. because I was head coach, and it was, you know, it was just up to me. But yeah, I loved it, and I wouldn't have changed that experience for the world.
Nice. And coaching's a doing thing anyway, isn't it? So
It
like
is,
you
yeah.
need time on the grass or court or pitch or whatever it is, don't you? So that sounds a really exciting journey. And I think you've hit something there, like school sport PE doesn't often do it for everybody, does it? It's
No,
not the answer.
no, it's not, and it's frustrating on the one hand because rugby, especially rugby union, is a game for all shapes and sizes. So I've got a really broad frame. So when I played prop. I have a tight head or loose head, and that's this position where you need to be quite broad shouldered. It's really physical, really powerful. It requires some neck strength and some leg strength. And so you get to this position where you're playing, where you're really proud of your body and what your body can do. But in school PE, that's not always necessarily the case. It can, I think, just by default, because of some of the sports and also teenage girls at that time, it can leave you feeling quite critical about your body and your body's abilities, because a lot of it is required to be, you've got to be fast. And a prop, I'm not faster than a winger, but actually I'm more powerful in my position. So certain sports definitely celebrate the individual body types a lot more, and so I found that my body type's celebrated in rugby, and I've owned it, and it's mine, and I'm really proud of it.
Fantastic. And playing football and playing, you know, other sort of team sports. What at that point was sort of the quality of coaching for females, because it does lag behind the male game, doesn't it? You know, it's male game's more established, and it's not something we can hide from. What was the quality of coaching in general you received as a young woman or girl?
Yeah, not very tailored, to be honest. In football and in rugby, I mean, those football camps, I remember when I was a kid, aged 8 or 9, I was often the only girl on those camps.
Yeah.
But I was never singled out or felt any different, and I think that was just because I had two amazing coaches at the time who were part of that West Midlands FA, and they were brilliant. That wasn't always translated when we moved into different environments, and maybe coaches weren't equipped to coach female players, and just coached us like small boys. And certainly a lot of the research has now helped within women's rugby around neck strength, concussion, injury rates. But even the fact that still today we're put on rubbish pitches in comparison to where the men train, and then we wonder why there's a higher injury rate. And yes, there are biological factors, but it's also just down to the pitch quality and the information that coaches are given. So we'd have sessions where it was just copy and pasted from what the men's first 15 had done, to then women who maybe had just picked up a rugby ball 2 weeks earlier, and this was like their third ever session. So it wasn't always directly tailored, but it's really hard to be critical of those coaches at that time, because I had some great experiences and I was coached by great coaches, but they were doing their best without real support, real research, or anything that was taking place from kind of NGB or higher led kind of processes. So it was really, you know, trying to find out what they could do, really doing their best, and with not a lot of informational support.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And then thinking about, like, you cited some like really good coaches that gave you some really good experience. What sort of things did they do? You know, you're saying you cited like maybe you were one of the only girls on the camps. Like, what did they do to make your experience to be as positive as possible? Which is brilliant, very admirable.
Yeah, it's just simple stuff, isn't it, that I remember at that age? But it's just always having a smile on your face, which when you're coaching kids, when you're coaching anybody, it's massively important. But you know, summer sport camps aren't like school, and nor should they be. So making that different and enjoyable, and it's just simple things like, you've got a load of kids, but if you can remember all their names, you make each individual kid feel special. And that's just something really, it seems so simple, it shouldn't be groundbreaking to say it, but I remember each of those coaches knew my name, and that felt then in that moment when they were talking to me that I mattered beyond, you know, my kicking abilities or my ability to head of the ball. They knew my name, so I mattered as a person, which is important. And sometimes just understanding the people. So when I was doing university rugby and then grassroots club rugby, the ability to understand that I wasn't going to perform as well in certain physical or sprinting tests as my counterparts because of the different body positions. So my coach would often walk up to me if we were doing a fitness test and go, you've done enough, you've smashed it for you, you take a breather, the wingers are going to complete their bit. And just feeling seen in that moment, like I had given 110%, couldn't give any more, that was all I could give for my position and my ability at the time. You've done enough, take a breather, have a drink break, just stuff like that. Not feeling criticized in that moment because you've emptied the tank, but you've emptied the tank for your position and your body's abilities. Take a breather.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm hearing areas of like making you feel competent and understanding yourself, making you feel related, sort of knowing your name and having more of maybe a task orientated approach.
Yeah. And it's something that I think when I've reflected on what I've done, that I've almost unconsciously taken over into my coaching, and I've made it a bit of a USP for me. So whether that's having like a levels approach at training, so it doesn't matter, you don't have to feel 110% to train. You can rock up. It might be, if you're a female athlete, it might be that your period or your menopausal symptoms are making you feel less than 110% that day, or it might be that you just had a poor day at work or school. But let's say we're doing a contact activity, I'll go, put your hands up if you're a level 1 today. So you want like minimal contact, or you want to just take it slow. Level 2 somewhere in the middle. Level 3 is, yeah, you're full of beans today, you want to absolutely go for it and smash people, and you're feeling really confident in the contact. Then we'll partner people up based on their levels, so everybody gets a stretch within their remit, and that's not something that's shamed upon. So no one's shamed or put down for being a level 1. It might be a level 1 because you just started last week, or you might have been level 3 last week, but actually you're cramping because of your period, or you're having a hot flush because of menopause. Level 1 is all you can do today, and that's absolutely fine. Or you're just going to take it slow. So that's something I think I've naturally kind of incorporated. Then over time, I've sort of realized that it's actually something really intentional that I do, and I've built upon it.
I really like that example. I feel that sounds amazing, that you're really kind of getting to know your participants. It's an over example of care, in my opinion. I wondered, how did you frame that the first time you did it? Because I wonder if, I'm just thinking of some sports or experience that I've had where you might not want to say you're a 1. So how might you create a space for people to go, well, I'm a 1 today.
Yeah, and I think that I started it, we didn't always have the levels. So when I first started, it was just partner up with somebody who's on the same like wavelength or ability or state of mind as you are today. And that helps by having it open initially, because it prompts players to go and chat to other players and initially find out, oh, where are you today? So it actually prompts the players to care a little bit more about each other and be curious about each other, to go, oh, Sue's not been herself today. I'll go and chat to her to see where she's at, and then maybe we can partner together in this contact activity. So it promotes people to be curious about each other, which helps create bonds across a team, but then also does set a little bit of a foundation for that levels approach. So if anybody was going to start to put that in, I'd say open questions first, to go find somebody who's on kind of the same wavelength that you are today. That prompts people to have a bit of a Q&A and chat with other players, and then it lays the foundation for putting something in place around levels.
Yeah, I really like that example. James, you got any questions at the minute?
Yeah, so just to backtrack a little bit with your background, Jess, you've talked about the coaching side. Is there a particular spark there that's led you to go down the academic route, and what's your kind of academic background? I know you're a colleague of Tom's now.
Yeah, so I'm doing a professional doctorate at Leeds Beckett, and I'm kind of getting to that sticky end, the writing end as well. So like the pressure's on at the moment, but I'm loving it. I'm having a blast. I think I've always loved finding out why I do things and being inquisitive. Like I did 2 arts degrees, but they weren't stereotypical arts degrees. So they were from a visual cultures background at Goldsmiths in London, and they were framed with you can explore anything, can think about the philosophies and the reasons why things, and how we view things and how we hear things. And so when I started coaching, kind of after and sort of in between I did my MA in contemporary art theory, I noticed that a lot of the same tools around planning, delivering, thinking about things, exploring about things, especially practice design initially, but overall in my coaching practice, things from art really translated across into the coaching practice. And so that's what the Deep Prof explores, or it uses artistic methods and ways of thinking through visual cultures to look at coaching. Particularly because I've come from coaching or art that is kind of performative in a little bit of a way, which when you put people in a space doing things actively, that starts to look something like sport as well. But I found a lot of the reflection tools and the ways of asking why things and exploring things and developing a practice that's authentic to me, that statement could be applied in art or coaching. So I found I was using really similar tools, and then I wanted to explore why I was using the same tools in art as in coaching. And so that led me on a bit of a research journey.
Great, that's really interesting. I'm a fellow Goldsmiths alumni as well. I did psychology at Goldsmiths, so yeah, that's interesting. So how's that? Obviously, our kind of area is around sort of psychosocial skills and characteristics, and how we sort of maybe assess and embed them within a session. So you've mentioned a couple of things there, like the assessment side. You mentioned there is brilliant. Literally, go and find out someone who's on the same level as you and work at that level. So in terms of kind of whatever sort of practices you might use, what would you see as important? Maybe there's a few questions there, I'm afraid. What would you see as important in maybe women's rugby? How would that maybe look different at different levels, different ages? And how might you sort of go in about measuring that and developing that on the pitch?
Yeah, psychology is something it's not shied away from in sport, but in grassroots sport, coaches don't really know how to approach it and what to do. When you talk about it, it's kind of I don't know anything about that. I haven't got like multiple psychology degrees. I don't know what I'm doing. That sounds really scary. When you frame it around mental skills, it becomes a little bit more kind of acceptable and easily integrated. But I've done lots of stuff around just checking in with players or having that connection time. So we know in women's sport that socialization is really key. So women and girls come along to sport to not just be physically active, but to have some connection time and some chatting time. And one of the things I often find when I speak to coaches who are coaching women and girls for the first time is they often say, well, they like to chat a lot. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a really good thing. You've got a chatty bunch and they'll want to pepper you with questions and want to know why they're doing a particular drill or a particular game. Or they'll just want to chat and connect with each other. And actually blocking that into your session plan is really, really important. So expect your water breaks to take longer, and you might have to do some scaffolding. So you might have to go and give them a task to do in their water break. So it could be a bingo and they've got to find loads of facts to fill in the bingo board and check that off. Or it could be like rock, paper, scissors. If you're just getting to know a new group, like if play a game of rock, paper, scissors with everyone, if you lose, you've got to tell that person a fact about yourself that they don't know. That instantly gets everyone moving around and chatting. So you can just leave it open. Go find somebody and chat about your day. Or we used to do a traffic light system when we first arrived at the club that I've just left. So rock up, try and find a partner, find like a check-in buddy, go through the traffic light system. So are you green? Are you having an awesome day? Are you amber or are you red? That prompts some chat about why. And then the other question was share something positive that's happened to you since you last saw the person or since you last trained. And it just gets the conversation just a little bit flowing and just takes them from out of work, stress, life mode and helps them transition into training. Because I often say the warm-up is really key for getting players physically active and transitioning them from outside training into training. But actually, what are we doing to physically to like prepare their mind as well from work-life stress into a space that is just for themselves? And for women who are mums, workers, everything else that they do in their life, transitioning them from that stress into a space where sport is just for themselves is they might need some help with that, and they might just need a 5-10 minute just sort of buffer zone where they can forget about all of that stuff and concentrate on just being them.
Yeah, brilliant.
Go on,
yeah,
James.
sorry, go on, Tom.
No,
Go on. Yeah,
No,
I think that's great. And I think that's a bit of a kind of obviously we've done it here with men's football, but I think you can see from the Euros and the way that kind of Serena Wiegman and Kate Hayes, the sports site there, manage that. They sort of built that in as well. So that's I found that really interesting. Yeah, sorry, Tom, go on.
No, I was just going to say I think like that. I'm quite interested at the minute. It's quite timely because I've got a role in a boys' football academy where I try and support and lead the psych element, and we've got a little project with the players around how we go from being at school all day to then, come into a group and let's say a group of 10, 11-year-olds, they're meeting their football mates and time's really tight in the academy. So it's like, how can we use the warm-up or an arrival activity to allow them a little bit of moment to discuss, chat, what you've been doing today at your school, to then get into it. So yeah, we try and use a bit of play and then move into the warm up. Right, you've had your play, a bit like an airlock, if you like, an element of play, and then right, okay, we're into the warm up and let's go for it. And it's really, really important. And I've noticed that in the grassroots, around like 13s going into 14s. So I'd up until recently have coached a grassroots side, so very similar. The boys would come in and what have you been doing today, or can you remember that from earlier, or whatever it is that happened at school that I probably don't need to know about. And it's giving them that space. So I think that's like really useful. I think you're giving some really useful tips there. I suppose something I want to ask you, in the different contexts that you do, I suppose how much are you trying to develop people for like performance, and how much are you trying to develop people just for general life? And have you got a view on, do you lean either way, or where are you on that kind of spectrum in the context that you coach?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think particularly in the girls' game, I think with the age groups that I'm currently coaching, so under 11s to under 16s, that some of them are setting their sights on, can I do rugby as a career, or can I go play for my county, or the player development group, which is the new kind of pathway group that the RFU have. And so balancing those with the girls that are just new at the camps is definitely a challenge, and it's a challenge that I think is really persists within the female game currently. And I'm of the view where I just want to coach you on the day, because I might only see that girl for once that year if she attends just one camp. But having that player voice is really, really important. So I'll go, this is the general outline for the day. These are some of the skills we want to work on. But if there's anything we haven't covered and you desperately want to do it, let me know and we'll see if we can add it in some way. But going around and then giving players individual challenges just really helps, because let's say we'll have a touch game and it could be 7-a-side. Within that whole group of 14 players, we could have completely different wants and needs and goals. So there might be a girl that's striving towards the PDG selection and trial or county trial, and there might be a girl who's in her first ever year of playing rugby who might have major imposter syndrome at that moment in that game. So giving them individual challenges and check-ins and being really skillful with our co-coaching is absolutely key. I live in a world where if we could everyone have the ability to do like rugby and sport for free, like bring it on. That's where I am. I'm like, let's get everybody picking up a ball, and then naturally there'll be a performance pathway that comes out of that. So I say I'm more probably development side of things than I am at those camps than pathway. But they do give us a unique opportunity for us to go, actually, is there anyone who's having an outstanding day today who we think is really, really coachable? Plus they've got some skill sets. Actually, let's just flag them on our radar and have a chat with somebody else. So there is the ability for us to talent ID, because we'll see a whole range of players. But the first and foremost challenge is, can we get everyone having fun and kind of meeting their challenge point, which is where those individual kind of challenges and do you want a skills challenge? Do you want to do this kind of comes in, and us being really skillful with our co-coaching.
Yeah, nice. That makes a lot of sense. Like being in that kind of camp environment where you may not know them. It's about the day, isn't it? It's about the moment. And it sounds like, I'm going to make a guess, that sounds incredibly skillful and difficult to get to know a little bit about everyone quite quickly to help to check in and give them a unique challenge point. Can you give us some examples of how you might do that? Because I'd like to try that.
Yeah, it's I try and set a framework out for the day beforehand. So, and some of that framework and the messages I'll send out to co-coaching or change or evolves over the couple of weeks as I'm able to be more familiar with the group of co-coaches, because I only started in January. So some of these people I'm still getting to know kind of co-coaching with, and what language works for them and what language works for me. And can we meet somewhere in the middle and have a bit of a shared language when we deliver on these camps? So as we've gone through the weeks, I've added notes around, feel free to be a challenger. Feel free to go around and give it and ask a player if it wants a challenge. And then if you've given a challenge to a player, please track it. Feel free to share it with me, but feel free, like also track it with the player you're the person that keeps kind of making sure they hit their points or questioning them around how far in the challenge are they. So let's say if it's a player who's always on the wing in that game and they want to get more hands on the ball, could we challenge them to change position and move somewhere else so they can get more ball on hand time? But then it's that coach is responsible for nudging that player. They've accepted the challenge and making sure they're on track with it and then tracking it. But it could also be that we reward points. So if a player gets more ball on hand time and they've moved to the centre, we might give their team overall an extra 3 points. Or if we've noticed that a player hasn't necessarily touched the ball or scored yet, we might do show of hands who hasn't touched the ball or scored yet, because it could be we've got 5 girls all from one club and they might just instinctively just all be passing to each other, which happens. So put your hands if you haven't yet touched the ball. Cool. If you haven't yet scored, your tries are all worth an extra 3 points. They're all triple pointers. And suddenly that gets us moving the ball around more. So we can do them really overtly and announce it to the whole group, or we can also just do like kind of subtle ones and just go and chat to that player going, do you want a challenge? I think that's the most important thing. Are they in the headspace to receive the challenge? If they're not, cool, because we might be stretching them enough already, or they just might not be feeling it at that moment. But if they are in the headspace for the challenge, like Russell Earnshaw goes, how spicy do you want it on that Nando scale? But just having a bit of a language of how hard do you want the challenge? If they seem up for it, can we really stretch them? But just using our co-coaching skills to go, right, I've given that player a challenge, so it's my responsibility to help them with it and to track that challenge.
Yeah, I really like that, and it's great you're sort of being proactive in that process, because we sometimes, some coaches will just say, well, they've got to bring it to the session and they've got to push themselves. Actually, the coach is really, really important in that process, and I really like that kind of space where it's like, who hasn't touched it, and it's fine if you haven't touched it. Well, so what? Yeah, I haven't touched it.
Yeah,
and I think that creating that sort of safeness for people to be able to say that is really, really important. I'm really interested to know, like, what are some of the core differences that you maybe see, or core practices or strategies you might, if you work with the little, you said you work with, like, is it 6, 7, 8-year-olds, to maybe,
yeah.
what would something similar look like with older groups, or what are the different things you might do with the different groups?
Yeah. So I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, I coach anything from tag to adult women, and they were like, that must be wildly different. And I was like, yeah, but you'd be surprised how often actually the 6-year-olds ask for bulldog and the adult women also ask for bulldog too. Like, you can use a lot of the same games. It's how we frame it and our language use just changes. With the little ones and giving out challenges, we're really more overt and more on a wider group. So it could be that there's 2 girls in that group and there's 8 boys, and simply, unfortunately, the girls aren't being passed the ball for whatever reason. That does happen. And with that, I'm really conscious to overtly call it out in the group and go, who's not touched the ball yet? Right, girls, if you touch the ball, each pass to you is worth 3 points, and really overtly call it out. We wouldn't necessarily give individual one-on-one skills, because by the time that 6-year-old has gone back into that game, they've completely forgotten the challenge we've given them. It's just gone, right? Because it's like, boom, there's the ball, let's go. Whereas with the adult women, they've got the ability to remember the challenge and then go back into the game. So how we give out challenges is more group focused with the 6-year-olds, and understanding that they are going to honeypot around the ball, and we are going to have to work on things like teamwork and all of those really foundational skills before we get to catch pass skills and stuff like that. With the adult women, we've got an ability to be a little bit more what I call like coach shenanigans, and we can be a little bit cheeky with it and stretch them in different ways. So we can have 2 teams playing a game and they might be playing completely different rules, and you've got to guess what rules your opposition are playing whilst also playing with your own. So we can be a bit more cheeky and a bit more, I don't want to use the word skillful because that implies that coaching 6-year-olds doesn't require high amounts of skill, but we can be a little bit sneaky with it. Whereas with the 6-year-olds, we've got to spell it out, because we're building the foundations of all of that thing. So if we build the foundations right for the 6-year-olds, by the time they get to 23, we can then put those coach shenanigans stuff in.
Yeah, I really like that shenanigans idea, because it's creating that observational skills. It's maybe sharing and debate, what are they doing? I think that's really, really useful, and I really appreciate that bit where you talked about like bulldog. I think you're right. Like Littleys, it's just like get away from, get to the side. There you go, do your best. But then you've got with older populations, I'm thinking 13, 14-year-olds and upwards. It's like deceleration, sidestepping. What specific moves are you going to evade people with, and really using the same activity can be used and scaled in different ways. And I think that's really useful for coaches. To be able to utilize similar activities. It's efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think everybody thinks, I've gone, let's say I'm coaching 6-year-olds now, and then I'm coaching 15-year-olds later. I've got to completely change the session plan. Actually, you might want to use maybe the same session plan or maybe similar activities, but the way you frame it and the language that you use, and I think the questions that you ask, those are the things that are most important to change first of all, because you can have a game of touch and a game of bulldog for under 6s and a game of touch and a game of bulldog for under 14s, but that would look completely different based on how you frame it and the questions that you ask.
Yeah, definitely really like those ideas. James, you get anything to ask at the minute? I can hog it if you want.
No, so I did have one thing around kind of the assessment side of it, because being a bit of a typical academic, I always like to write things down and have everything evidence-based, but it's not always the case when you have that chaos going around. So I know you can do questionnaires, etc. That's something we're trying to move away from a little bit. I think it can be a little bit off-putting for coaches and participants. So some of the stuff you said there is really interesting about how you're setting individual challenges. Is that just done kind of through coach's eye? You just spot something and step in, or is it a little bit more sort of periodized and formal?
Yeah, with the way I coach at the moment, just because often I'm seeing the players for one day, it's just a spot and a notice. So it's more framed around conversations with our co-coaches around what we've noticed, and then going in and having a chat with the player. So it's a lot more not from the gut, but it's built-in experience over time, which now feels like it's from the gut, and then a chat with the co-coach and then a chat with that player. Over time, if I'm with a group of players, we might have some goal cards. So like, what are their superpowers and what are their even better ifs? So they would be an even better player if they could spin past longer or tackle a little bit more confidently or could push in the scrum better. And then we might frame some of their challenges around some of their goal cards. But with players we're just meeting, it's way more observation based, which is a challenge, but I absolutely love it. Just what can we see? Cool. What can we pull out of this session? And then, okay, check in at break time. We've got these group of players. What do we think success looks like at the end of the day? So it's a lot more kind of based on our observation skills.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think sometimes coach's eye gets a bit of a bad rep, doesn't it? But I think, like you say, with experience, then it is a very powerful tool. Yeah.
I suppose part of the audience who might view this in the Psychology of Performance sort of WhatsApp group and eventually on YouTube are going to be sort of trainee sports psychs. And I wondered if you had any information or you'd be able to offer something about what does a really great sporting environment look like from a psychological perspective? What would the best you could possibly create for, let's say, I don't know, an adolescent female rugby player or one of your camps? What does the best environment look like for them?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'm doing this thing at the moment where sometimes on the camps or sometimes when I'm coaching, I'll shut my eyes, which probably looks really weird to everybody else around me if I'm stood in the middle of the game or a sound line and shut my eyes. But I'm listening to what I can hear and pick up. So can I hear good quality information, not just every coach's buzzword of communication, but can I hear some good quality information that's being delivered? Can I hear a range of voices speaking as well? So is each girl having the option to speak up at certain points in the game? And can I hear not laughter all the time, because a session isn't going to contain laughter 100% of the time, but in the tone of their voice, can I sometimes hear some laughter, or can I hear them being can I hear the attention? Can I hear the effort? And can I hear some joy in their voice? And I think those are some of the things that I'm trying to initially listen to at the moment. It's something I'm trialing over the summer of actually what does it sound like when I shut my eyes, and what does that then tell me about the session? But I think for for somebody going into an environment for girls, I think it should look like all of those things. I don't think it should look like laughter 100% of the time, but it should look like focused joy. It should look like serious fun. Like there should be enjoyment, but it shouldn't just be trivial enjoyment. It should be enjoyment from getting an increased skill or an increased challenge, as well as that socialization time that we spoke about earlier. So it should be a bit noisy at times, and it should be a bit like focused noise, if that makes sense.
No, makes a lot of sense. The joy comes through the execution of the tasks and being in the moment. I guess that would be my interpretation of what you said, and that's cleverly designed by a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it comes down to those individual challenges. So, are we providing a safe enough environment where a player feels comfortable enough to say no, they don't want a challenge, and a player feels comfortable enough to say yes, they want a challenge as well. So the environment should facilitate both those options and both those answers. So no one should feel pressured to go, my coach has asked me if I want a challenge, I have to say yes, even though no, I don't desperately want it. They should have the ability to say no, this is enough for me today. It comes down to those levels, like no, I don't want a challenge. If a player says no, I don't want a challenge, then I think you've created a really good environment because that player feels comfortable enough to say no to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sounds like a really fantastic idea and sort of sessions I'd want my kids to be part of, for example. And I just wonder, like, have you ever, and you might not have been, I'm just wondering how that might transfer into like talent development environments, because I think children are still children and children still have the same needs and wants. Some children on some days don't want a challenge.
Yeah.
Right. Have you ever been in those environments, and how do you see those sort of ideas playing out? Because I think they should and could play out. I think my experience is, I wonder, that's quite difficult. Have you had a go at testing and challenging some of those ideas?
Yeah, I have. I've coached in some pathway environments, and I think it's more difficult for the child to say no because they feel like they've got to say yes to everything because they're in a performance environment. So I almost think like laying that foundation really quickly around. You go back to how do we lay the foundation for the levels? We asked open-ended questions, and then it kind of set the foundation for the levels. Setting the foundation for it's okay for the player to say no. And I think sometimes that's important to set with parents or guardians and loved adults as well as players to set the foundation. And then that gives tools for those parents to ask the right questions in the car journeys on the way home as well and on the way to training. So if we can scaffold some of that and just lay a foundation for it's okay, you don't have to accept the challenge, because it's a high pressure environment for that player at that time. And we don't want to force the option that they've always got to say yes to a challenge, like it's completely optional. So sometimes, even going back to the under six where you've got to overtly say things, sometimes I think sometimes you do just have to lay it out there and go, we're going to offer you some challenges. You don't have to accept it. If you're just stretched enough today, or you just want to focus on the game for XYZ for whatever in your IDP, and you're just focusing on that and you don't want an optional challenge, that's completely okay. You will never have a selection drop, will never be considered because you've said no to a challenge. And sometimes just saying it out in bold and sending it out on like WhatsApp messages and communications to parents, and then saying it verbally as well, I think is massively, massively important. And it just helps set a little bit of option of, I can say no to coach. The selection isn't going to kind of be weighed on that.
Yeah, I think that's really good kind of practical advice that's probably realistic, because what you see in a lot of talent development environments, it's stretch. That'll be great, brilliant, but someone's going to snap at some point.
Yeah, and we've got to remember that especially within women's rugby, where they'll go into a performance environment, but they'll still have full-time jobs outside of that. Unless you're an international, you've got a full-time job as a doctor, a nurse, a tattoo artist, a scaffolder, whatever it is that your day job is, and then you'll go and train. So actually the ability to go, this is where I'm at today, and have your coaches understanding that is really, really key, especially in female performance, because the end goal will be you juggling two roles at the same time. One of those is high performance sport, and one of those is your high performance job. Whatever that looks like, it will bring, you'll require high performance mentalities to go out there and achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that takes a really highly skilled coach to be able to facilitate that in a performance environment. So I think that's really good advice there, Jess. James, you got anything to ask Jess?
No, at this point, yeah, that's really good. I've been taking loads of notes and definitely stealing some ideas off you, Jess. I love some of this, the traffic light stuff. It's brilliant. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just probably just coming towards the end, there's probably two things that would probably just want to ask is, one is like, how is your D-Prof influencing any of this? Because I think that would be interesting to listen to a little bit about your research and how it might influence. And then secondly, final bits of advice for coaches in similar contexts that they might want to try.
Yeah, I think the D-Prof has given me the freedom to try things, and almost, I think something I've really struggled with as a coach is reflecting on a session. Like I still really struggle with it. Like my brain will go, well, that was a rubbish session, instantly in the back of my head, and I'll go, I know that wasn't a rubbish session. That's just like my inner saboteur going, that was a rubbish session. So the D-Prof is kind of, because I'm using different mediums to record and document things and to try things, it's kind of helped me with my reflection tools. So it might be an audio note to a mate, or an audio note made on my phone to help me reflect things, or revisiting notes a bit more and scribbling over things. But most importantly, just encouraging me to try things, and that it's okay to try and to fail things. When I was doing my art practice at Goldsmiths, we were always encouraged to try, and that a failure was never a failure, because there was always something artistic or a learning moment that could come out of that. And it's the same in coaching. We have to, just as much as we try and encourage our players to try things, and it might not always work out, the same goes in our coaching practice. And something I've learned of that is being vulnerable. So if it's a new game or a new element in my practice design that I'm trying out, I've been vulnerable and shared that with the players and go, this might be bonkers. This might not work. We might all stop in 5 minutes and go, oh, that was rubbish. But if it works, or if we can tweak it, give me some feedback and we'll work through it together. This is a bit of a bonkers idea. Let's all work it through. And that way the players don't feel like they're being experimented on, but they're experimenting with you. And I think ethically, and to create a really good environment, I think that kind of laying the foundation and being vulnerable yourself is key.
Yeah, really like that. And like you say, be prepared to be vulnerable is a really good kind of skill to try. And I think especially if you're a psych and or a coach, or a psych trying to work through a coach, is try stuff and reflect. I think that's really useful. Well, Jess, thanks very much for that conversation. I think that was really useful. There's so many applied, psychologically orientated bits and strategies that people can consider there, especially working in youth at sport environments. I think that's really useful. So I really appreciate your time coming on and talking to us about this area. And I hope the Psychology of Performance members appreciate that and can comment on that as well. So yeah, thank you very much, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Good to meet you.
Right, I will stop the recording.